One of the last remnants of Andrew Jackson's presidency was the Specie Circular, which was an executive order that mandated that federal lands must be bought and paid for specifically with gold or silver. They would not accept any promissory notes or otherwise. And that, to Jackson, was the nom de guerre at the time. He was the one who really advented the idea of specie being more stable in the first place. Ultimately, what happened, though, is it caused a financial crisis as people couldn't afford to pay for various different federal lands or obtain funding for anything of the sort. It caused a panic, an economic downturn that lasted the better part of 5 years. That was the Panic of 1837 and lasting a few years after that. That really put a damper on Martin Van Buren's presidency. So after Andrew Jackson's second term, Martin Van Buren runs for president, wins. But a few different things are different from Martin Van Buren. First of all, Andrew Jackson, to his supporters, was an incredibly loved figure. He was very personable. He was very much in touch with the common person. I mean, that was his whole campaign in the first place. The people who loved him truly loved him. And he was a likable figure. As controversial as he is to his supporters, he was very likable. Martin Van Buren, not as likable or successful, and he had the unfortunate timing of dealing with that panic in 1837. And due to the economic downturn, his entire term as president was hampered by what was going on as a result of the panic. And in 1840, Van Buren runs for president again, except this time he's so unpopular because he's not able to overturn the downturn that the Whig candidate, William Henry Harrison, defeats him reasonably handily at that. And so William Henry Harrison, a charismatic Whig factor, and even though you would think the Whig would come from a little bit more of a wealthier stature, he portrayed himself to be as a common man, kind of in an Andrew Jackson type form, even though they came from different arrangements. Otherwise, though, William Henry Harrison portrayed himself to be a simple man who loved log cabins and hard cider and was just good down-home folk. When in reality, he was a very wealthy member of the frontier elite, and he had a considerable estate, as was typical with Whigs. But how he was able to relate to the common man and how he was able to portray himself, I mean, he probably chops his own wood and he loved log cabins. I mean, that appeals to common folks, right? Obviously. He won that election in 1840. The problem for William Henry Harrison is that he got sick and died about a month after he was inaugurated. Oops. So, as constitutionally agreed upon, the vice president would become president should the president die. And that goes to John Tyler. Oddly enough, John Tyler used to be a Democrat, and he ran as a Whig for vice president. And John Tyler had some fundamental disagreements with some of the Whig Party. Some of his old Democratic Party roots really rang true and became more and more evident as time would go by. Namely, he was a big proponent of states' rights. That is a Democratic Party platform staple in this era. That wasn't a Whig platform. He also really believed in the expansion of slavery. That was a Democratic platform back in that era. Okay, he comes so much at odds with the Whig Party that he leaves the Whig Party and he re-enters the Democratic Party. You have a new wing of the Democratic Party. Former Democrats who returned, your prodigal sons who have a little bit different of an idea, but in their core, they're very much in tune with the platform. That's what you have with John Tyler. And as you usher in his presidency, that's going to be something that the Whig Party and the Democratic Party are both going to have to pay attention to going forward. Things are starting to evolve a little bit.